Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Mile High Game Guys board gaming podcast. I'm your host Adrian.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And this is the second part of our
weekly content
of content, yes. So this is our review episode, and this episode we will be reviewing Imperial Settlers.
Yeah. Do you have all of your stats about the Imperial Settlers?
Do we just want to dive right in?
I don't know. We can talk about
chit chat. No, nothing.
Imperial Settlers. I saw at Gen Con once.
That's where I picked it up.
Yeah. I saw it the year it came out, and it was impossible to buy.
Sounds about right.
I'm glad I picked it up used, complete in box for like $30.
Nice.
I really like this game.
Well, there goes burying the lead. I guess now we can probably just move right into the review now that everybody knows how Jeff feels about things.
Okay, so I should supplement that with, I don't love everything about this game, but I like this game a lot.
Stay tuned to find out what Jeff does not like about Imperial Settlers.
Yep.
Bum, bum, bum.
It'll be clear and loud.
I do like in one of Mike's emails or something he sent recently, he said we should start doing previously on the Mile High Game Guys.
Fuck Imperial Settlers.
Start cutting something out of the old episode right at the beginning. I like that idea.
To totally contradict ourselves.
At one point, we just need to end an episode with I just say something, and you're just like, "All right, Zach, that's it." You put in a sound of you opening a knife, and it's like, "Adrian, no, stay away, don't cut me, no," and then it just ends there.
Cliffhanger.
Yes.
And then we start up the next one previously on, and just do that audio clip of you. No. Zach, would you like to cut this salami?
Yes, exactly.
That's basically every comic book cover from the 1950s through 70s.
Yeah, pretty much.
Totally something nothing to do with what's actually in the comic. Superman was a dick on a lot of those covers. It is hilarious.
Nice.
I feel like Superman was kind of a dick way back in the day. It's not as bad now.
There is a online comic strip of just Superman being a dick, and it's really funny.
Nice.
Yeah.
I could see that. All right, well, that's enough of that shenanigans.
What does Superman have to do with Imperial Settlers?
I don't know. We'll find out.
No, we won't.
No, I can't. I'm trying to think of anything that could connect the two. No.
I've already got something.
What?
All right.
Well, you'll see.
Okay.
I don't want to say. What is it right now?
I'm not going to say.
Well, we're not going to continue until we say.
So, Imperial Settlers was a game released in 2016.
This doesn't have anything to do with Superman. No, go ahead.
You may now continue.
Yeah, you may now continue.
All right, so yes, we are reviewing Imperial Settlers, which was released in 2014 by designer Ignacy Trzewiczek, artist Thomas Jedrzejczyk.
Ooh.
Check.
Fuck you about pronouncing things now.
Dude.
See, this is great because anything I have to say is usually things that I write.
Tomaszz Jedrzejczyk.
Tomaszz Jedrzejczyk.
You probably
I know the SZ is a ch sound,
Yeah.
and not a s.
You could probably just go with Ignacy.
Yes. It was published by Portal Games. It plays 1 to 4 players, and it takes 45 to 90 minutes. Zach, do you have a rules breakdown for us?
Yeah, sure. In Imperial Settlers, you are unique civilizations competing for the biggest empire. Each turn, you'll be gathering resources, playing cards to expand your empire, and doing actions with any gained abilities. There are 2 types of cards that you'll be using, common cards that everyone has access to, and faction cards which are specific to you. You're also going to be able to raise common cards for extra resources, including your opponents, although that is at a higher cost. After 5 rounds, you'll add any extra points you've gotten from the cards that you've played onto your scoreboard, and whoever has the most is the winner.
That's Imperial Settlers.
Yep.
So, Jeff, since we'll start with what you were thinking going into this game, you were just telling us a little bit about how you saw this at Gen Con way back in the day, and it was really hard to get. So when you finally had a chance to get this to the table, what were your thoughts?
It was definitely the hotness that year. I want to say it was number 1 or number 2 in 2014. I really wanted to try it. I couldn't even get it on a demo game. I ended up picking it up years later before I could actually even play it. I think maybe you guys were one of the first times I had even played it. It was a card game / resource management game. Where you had your own unique civilizations and seemed super interesting. It had a great playtime, and I was super excited to finally get it to the table.
Right on. Zach, do you remember your first time getting this table, what your thoughts were?
I can't. I know I'd heard from a lot of people that they really liked the game, and the first time I really had for whatever reason, it just didn't catch my interest.
Okay.
And so I remember when you ended up getting it, it was like, oh, okay, I'd heard this game is good. Let me try this out.
Cool. We picked this up last year at Gen Con. As Megan just today reminded me when I was like she was asking, what are you guys going to review? And I was like, we're going to review Imperial Settlers. She's like, oh, be sure to talk about how you weren't at all interested in this game, but I picked it out and now you love it. But yeah, we were at Gen Con wandering around
And
the
complete.
Yeah. We were at Gen Con wandering around the dealer hall, and we were walking by the Portal Games booth, and she saw it, and she was kind of like the art style on the front of the box, and flipped it over and was reading a bit on the back. She's like, this sounds kind of cool. I was like, all right, well, do you want to get it? She's like, yeah, I do. And so we picked it up. And
A day later.
No.
I thought you guys had like wandered around for a couple hours.
Yeah, I think we came back and got it, but it was the same day.
Gotcha.
Like the same day that we had that conversation. But we picked it up. We didn't end up, we debated about picking up some of the expansions, but we thought we'd go ahead and see how the base game was before we went for expansions. So the first time we played it was after we got back from Gen Con. We were at home and it's like, hey, you want to bust this out and try it? And, I was like, all right, the cover art's kind of cartoony and silly. I wasn't expecting much from the game, like depth or anything. I thought it'd be kind of light, and we busted out and yeah, had a nice little 2-player learning game where we were fumbling through the rules and ended up playing quite a bit wrong, but
Gotcha.
Had fun with it. So, all right. So that's kind of what we were thinking going into the game. Mm-hmm. Once you got the game to the table, components.
I thought the components were nice. Like
They're a little, I don't know, tiny.
I mean, yeah, they're a little tiny, but
The wood could be bigger.
It could, but you don't necessarily
But they're all
need
meeples,
it.
which
Yeah.
is nice.
Yeah, the meeples.
Not cubes.
Yeah, the apple. I mean, they all sort of. Well, is it apples or tomatoes? I can't remember.
I swear I've seen Ignacy on Twitter say both.
Okay.
I swear in one conversation somebody said something like tomatoes. He's like, oh yeah, you're the only person who's realized they're tomatoes. And then later on somebody was like, dude, the apples in this are awesome. He's like, yeah, apples are the best. So I think Ignacy is just fucking with everyone on this one.
Probably.
Which I could actually totally
Yeah.
believe from what little I know of Ignacy.
Yeah. But yeah, those worked nice. I don't know, the cards, they're clear enough, but also for some, like, if because the production ones go on the top line.
Hot news.
Yeah.
Coming in hot.
Okay.
I have searched. Portal Games has confirmed. Yes. These are apples, not tomatoes.
Okay.
Jeff, I'm telling you though, I swear I saw a different one where he said they were tomatoes, not apples.
Well,
I really think Ignacy is, because Ignacy runs the Portal Games Twitter. I think he's messing with us.
Well, I'm going to say they're apples because
I thought they were apples.
I
for
thought
the
they were apples
longest
too.
time.
So
do tomatoes really have stems like that?
Yeah.
they can, yeah.
I mean, they have like the little
if
green
someone
part at the
cuts
top.
them, yeah, but it's not going to be.
That looks like an apple.
No,
stem more.
I agree with you.
Okay.
We agree with you, but also if he was like, they're tomatoes, you're like, okay, I can sort of
Well,
see
let's
it.
burn every bridge we can and be like, fuck you, they're apples.
Anyhow.
Yeah.
You were saying about the cards.
The cards, so the production ones go on the very top of, on both sides of the row. The features go in the center, and the actions go on the bottom. I like that they actually label that, but also the card, like the trails in the background,
the paths.
The paths.
Yeah.
If it goes to the production, it doesn't have one from the top. It only has it from the bottom and the sides. And the same thing for the action ones. It doesn't have any on the bottom. It's only on the top and the sides. Mm-hmm. So I like that they have that distinguishation.
Differentiation?
Differentiation. That's the one I was looking for. It was like distinguishation. No, that's not
that doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't. I like that they included that. And also that the common cards and your faction cards have different ground. Because it's like regular grass, but when the Egyptians, it's all sand. Or barbarians, it's like more dirt-esque.
Barren.
Barren. The Roman
Desolate.
ones are more like roads and stuff like that. So.
Japanese are cherry blossoms and
Yeah.
greenery.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like that they have all those. So I like that they distinguish that well.
The art style alone, I really like.
Yeah, you always see a bunch of little people doing stuff.
It reminds me of Populous or any of those sort of civilization building games.
Yeah. One thing I really like about the components is we mentioned some of the pieces like the wood and the food, whether they're tomatoes or apples. And the stone or wood pieces. And then there's some other ones that are cardboard pieces. One of the things I like is that they use the different material, like whether they're wood pieces or cardboard chits, to kind of signify a slight difference in what the goods are. So the gold coins are cardboard, but they count as any of the wood pieces, which kind of
Except
helps.
for people, but yeah.
Except for people.
Yeah.
But that helps explain, that this is any of these wood bits except for the people. But I always forget the people because they're not They're a resource,
a-
but they're
Not a traditional resource.
yeah.
You
because
spend
they're
them
another
as-
one you spend them to get other resources.
Yeah, exactly.
as
including
actions.
cards and stuff. So I really like that. I think like the cards quality themselves is good. Like I don't feel the need to sleeve them. They're not
No.
getting worn. Like I've played a
Well,
bunch.
especially because they're white bordered.
yeah,
So-
which is super nice.
Yeah.
Little dings and dents don't show up super clearly. There
play-
is a fair amount going on the cards, like you were kind of saying there, Zach.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, like
There's very little detail you really need to pay attention to.
And I like that all the cards like have different things you can do with them. Like all of the common cards can either be built to get whatever it is, the feature, the action, the whatever, or they have a raise icon on them where you can get some resources. And all of the faction cards have the deal. So you can make a deal instead to put it in a different spot. Like you turn it upside down and stick it somewhere else, and now it becomes like a permanent production.
Right.
And I think they do a really good job of like clearly signifying on the cards what all of those different possibilities are. Like the raise section is clearly denoted, the deal section is clearly denoted. They all have a color assigned to them that, with the exception of green. Green kind of blends in sometimes to the like artwork above
Yeah.
it.
I'm not really sure what green even is still to this day.
But otherwise, like the blacks, blues, reds, grays, pinks,
Yeah.
oranges, those all stand out really well.
Well, and then also they have like some sort of like if it's rock, it sort of has like in the gray, it has a bunch of rocks.
Yeah.
If
Drawn
it's
in there.
black, it's
Yeah.
little swords for
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. So they have little cool visual aids like as part of the graphic design that I think really kind of help with understanding what the cards are.
Yeah.
I also like that the common cards, when you flip them over, show the little house symbol on the back.
Yeah.
Because when they get raised, you flip it over, and now you have that symbol that you can spend for other cards.
It's like your building has been raised, and now there's a nice village there.
Yeah. It's no,
Yeah, the artwork ceases to apply. They should have just maybe been rubble on the backs of the cards. I don't know.
Well, I guess it's because they have like ruined other cards and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only component complaint I have, and this wasn't an issue until I got the expansions, but the actual so the player boards are like this really narrow strip of cardboard.
Do they fold at all? I don't remember.
They don't.
Yeah.
And so it didn't matter. Like when they all came that way, it's like, oh, whatever, and they fit in the box. Well, then the expansions came, and they're in smaller boxes, and theirs are like a jigsaw puzzle. So it breaks into two pieces that take up significantly less space. And man, I wish the initial ones were like that, because then that entire thing could take up so much. Like you wouldn't need the whole length of that little cardboard player board in a box. You could condense it down to fit into.
Yeah,
something
I can
much
definitely agree with
smaller.
that.
Yeah.
Like I said, it wasn't even something I ever thought of until the expansions. And it was like, oh, wait, they could do this? Wait, why didn't they do this to begin with?
I know, right? Yeah.
I prefer the player board all in one piece and not the puzzle piece.
Really?
Yep.
Huh.
I like it in the big chunk. Same with like Secret Hitler. It's the nice one big block that you play on.
I don't know. For that, it makes in my mind at least, it makes more sense than the Imperial Settler one. Like I think because you're not using all of the information on there,
Yeah.
you could have found a way to jigsaw it or
I'm always just a big fan of solid
Complete.
pieces
Yeah.
and not multiple. Like, let me put these pieces together.
I mean, if they'd had found some way to do even a reasonable crease where it could be folded or something, would have been all right.
Eh. I'm even less of a fan of folding.
But, well, there you go. So
your laundry is just in one
Jeff-
big pile.
Jeff loves the way it is right
How do you know how I live?
because we all live the same
Yes,
way.
exactly. I just take that pile from my bed and I move it to my chair when I go to sleep, and then when I use the chair, I
It's
just
back and forth,
yep,
back and
yep.
forth. PUBG time,
Yeah.
sleep time.
Exactly. Until a cat accidentally pisses on it. Anyway,
No cats.
yeah,
Yeah.
5 cats, 5 cats in our apartment, so it's great.
Only one of them's yours.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to just stress that for you.
Thank
so
you.
people don't assume that I'm.
It's
in a
just me and
podcast.
5 cats. That's just what's
a
going
crazy
on.
cat.
I don't want anyone to
Dude.
think that I would do a podcast with a crazy cat person. So that pretty much covers all the components.
Absolutely.
Cardboard chits, cool wooden pieces, decent quality cards, good quality cards. I'd
Yep.
even say I'd go so far as to say good quality cards. The
Hot pink people meeples.
Yes.
hot pink people meeples. The artwork is a little cartoony for my personal tastes, but it kind of works.
I have stated previously that I really like the tiny person populace, like black and white esque, like I am the god of these peoples sort of card art.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, now let's move on and talk a little bit about rules and rules explanation. So the rules can they're pretty straightforward. The game plays out over 5 rounds, and you basically go through each step of a round, with the main chunk of the game taking place during the action step, where everybody just takes turns doing one action each until everybody passes.
Placing cards.
Activating action cards that are already placed, exchanging resources, things like that, raising buildings, whatever you're doing.
But it all starts with drafting.
It does all start with drafting. Well, not in the base rules. The base rules are just everybody takes 2 cards.
Oh, okay.
The drafting is one of the advanced rules, which we're big fans of drafting.
Yep, mandatory. Much like Terraforming Mars.
Yes.
Yep.
Play with draft, you monsters.
Yes. I do think that in this one we tried. So they have 2 different advanced rules for dealing out the initial cards. They have just the normal draft, draw 3, take 1, pass 2, take 1, discard 1.
And the other one is like
Layout.
put out like a layout of cards.
Like
and
5 of them. First player picks 1, then second and third. Like second picks out of the remaining 4. Then you flip a new card. Third picks out of 4. Then first picks out of those 3. And then you flip a new card, and then second and third pick out of the 3. It's kind of weird.
It's overly complicated for.
And it kind of feels like the last player gets really screwed towards the end of it.
you have the thinnest of the possible choices
at all times.
Like that's a clear bad card. No one's going to choose, and you're going to be stuck with that being one of your options at the end.
Yeah. So I prefer just the regular draft.
Yes.
Draw 3, pick 1, pass 2, pick 1, discard 1.
We tried the other advanced one. After 1 round, we were like, we're going back to the old one.
Going back to regular drafting.
Yeah. Well, especially because it's like, okay, well, this other person needs to see them, so you have to orient it so they can read all of them, and then another person has to, and it just bogged down the game too much.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think most rule explanation for the game goes pretty smooth.
I mean,
when we decided to review this, I hadn't played in a while, and it all came back
Yeah.
super fast.
Yeah.
The only thing that took any sort of explanation was like the make a deal, and it's like, you pay food.
Yeah.
I would make a deal is, at least it's explained in the rules pretty clearly. The one thing that I think is a little bit wonky is it is not clearly indicated on the cards. It's not something you would think of. But when you play a production card, you immediately receive the production resources, which, production is a distinct phase. So when you play a card that says production, you would assume that, next production phase I'll earn that. No, like you earn it now, and then every production phase from here on out.
Well, specifically because the card says building bonus. Like when you build this, you get a bonus of this.
Which that's a one-time bonus that some cards have, not all cards have.
No, yeah, but I'm saying, so that's why you can feel confused because you're like, oh, this says production, this is building bonus. When I build this, I'll get this bonus every other time I'm going to get the production. So that can be confusing. And then also, just because this is a card-based sort of, like there's a whole lot of interactions because of the cards that you can get some weird instances. That's
just
just
how exactly does this chain together?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And even like with the deals, like when you initially make a deal, you receive that resource right away.
Yeah.
And then you receive it every production phase thereafter. And that's not like, unless you really comb through the rules, that's not readily apparent.
Yeah.
So it's easy to miss.
Yes. And then also, I don't know if this was just from the lack of explanation or the fact, like, because we were playing wrong, is that like there are things where you can be like, it's like, oh, you can take a person and put it on, use this card as an action to get a wood instead of the usual like 2 person for 1 wood, and it says you can do it twice, and then so sometimes you'll just have it like you don't realize like we didn't play. You can do them both at the same time. I guess that's what I meant to say.
Yes. If it says exchange a person for a wood, you may do this action twice. On your turn, you can do 1 person for 1 wood, or you can just take that action twice in that turn.
Maybe activated twice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that isn't super clear. And I think the way is because in the rules it says you may activate a card.
Yeah.
And like that card says it may be activated twice, which means like when you activate it, you can use it twice, which
doesn't mean you have to spend 2 turns doing it.
Well, because and so it's also the same sort of thing when you can spend 2 people to get something else. It says you can activate it multiple times. That means you can do it like if you had 6 people you're not using.
You could trade all 6 of them for 3 resources in 1 turn.
Which for me at least, reading the it can be activated multiple times means you can activate it like more than once a turn, like more than once in subsequent
per turn,
turn.
but you can do it more than
exactly.
one time.
Yes.
So those are things to kind of be aware of with the rules and how it plays out. It's one of those things where, especially like as you play more, those can become strategies. Like sometimes you're like, oh, I think they're gonna like one of my opponents is gonna destroy this card, so I want to use both actions right now. Whereas other times you might be like, well, I'm trying to stall to see like what they're gonna put out, so I'm gonna do just one, and then my next turn I'm gonna do it again. Like, and you can do that, and so it's kind of a balance that'll come in. You know, we'll talk more about that kind of stuff during gameplay, but it's easy to miss in the rules that you can do those actions more than once on one turn.
Yeah. Also in the rules, like, so with raising cards, you know, it spends one sword to raise one of your own cards, but that's
From
not
your hand.
from your hand. You can't do it from cards you've already installed. And then you can spend 2 to raise somebody else's common cards, unless it's the Japanese, in which you can raise those. But when you pass, like,
You're immune.
You're immune from that. And so there's sometimes, like, even though we've played it multiple times, the last game we played, it was like I had passed, and then like
I
on the
raised
next
the
turn,
card.
Adrian raised it, and then like a turn and a half later, we're like, oh shit, Adrian shouldn't have been able to do
it
that.
was that same turn because you were like, well, wait, so when you raise the thing, I get these resources, but
then
I already passed, so I don't get to keep resources when I pass. I was like, yeah, I guess you just don't get them. And then it was like, oh wait, no, I can't raise you anyway, so that shouldn't even be an issue.
Yeah,
I punched out. You can't fuck with me.
exactly. Yeah,
Because when you pass and because once you pass, you're out. Like, this isn't a pass and jump back in game. Once you pass, you're out, but then you are like legitimately out of that round.
Other people
Nobody
get to
can
play-
do anything
Yeah.
with your stuff.
because there are other games where it's
Strategic
mention number
pass.
2, Terraforming Mars.
Strategic passes.
Well, you can pass, but once you pass, you're out.
Yeah.
But you can still fuck with somebody even after they passed.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Or like there's some other games like Eclipse where once you've passed, you have access to a limited number of like almost like follow actions still to where like, oh wait, they're doing that? Well shit, I already passed, but I still need to react to this.
Yep.
And you can. This isn't that way. Like once you pass, you're out, but nobody can mess with you at
Yeah.
all. Which is nice.
Your
from
shields
the
have gone up.
Passing person perspective, it can be very frustrating as I want to raise that building that will give me the resources I was counting on, but you passed a turn earlier than I thought you would side of things.
That's never happened.
Never.
never ever.
Never, ever. The only other thing rules-wise is all the factions are pretty unique.
I mean, you do have your common cards.
Yes.
But everyone's like faction buildings are very, very different.
Yeah.
Where that really comes into play is in the base game, the 4 factions are the Romans, the Barbarians, the Japanese, and who am I forgetting?
The Romans, the barbarians,
Egyptians.
the Egyptians.
The Barbarians and the Romans are the recommended like first 2 to start with because although their cards are very different, they don't do anything different for the game. Like they basically play by all the same normal rules. Whereas the Japanese, like you briefly mentioned earlier, Zach, their faction cards can actually be raised, but they can place out samurai that work
Protect
as an
them,
extra defense token and kind of protect them.
And I think the Japanese, you only play with 4 players or something.
You can play with 2. Like they're not recommended for early play. Like, because they are an advanced race. As is the same case with the Egyptians. They have a couple things they do where like they can use tokens to kind of take over other people's buildings and use their abilities. And those are slightly advanced. And then especially when you add in the expansions with the Atlanteans and the Aztecs, which we'll talk about the expansions a little bit more in depth. But those also play quite a bit differently. So it's one of those things when you're teaching, especially new players, if you're teaching any of those advanced races, you're going to have to give them a little bit additional rules of how to play their race specifically, which can add to that explanation time.
Yeah. One last thing too, if you add any expansions to the games that add to the faction decks, the game says it's only supposed to be 30 cards, that's what it starts out with. But if you add more, then you're supposed to deck build to build your 30. Which, if it's like if you're playing somebody's copy or something like that, it's like you hope they have to do it, or you're just going to play those extra cards because it will dilute otherwise. But I remember, like, when we were playing, we were like, oh, we had 60 cards.
The first time we played with the expansions.
Yeah, we had 60 cards because Adrian has all the expansions, right?
All the major expansions.
Yeah, all the major expansions. And it's like, oh, we have to cut this down to 30. And we're like, I don't like, especially if you haven't played that race or anything, you're like, I don't know which ones are necessarily
you don't
good.
want to sit there and deck build it for forever. But yeah, so that is another important thing that that's part of the rules is the deck building aspect of this game, which the way the game is kind of set up and marketed, you don't think of this as like Android where you're building a deck and then taking it to play, but like there's rules for organized play and competitive play.
Tournament play.
And stuff like that. I don't know if there are really much in the way of Imperial Settlers tournaments. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah.
And I've never heard of anybody playing this super competitively. Like,
if they can turn Small World into a fucking tournament, they can turn Imperial Settlers into one.
Catan's a tournament. Catan has dice chucking.
Yeah. I got all the twos.
Oh, God damn it, Adrian.
I love Catan.
Yeah.
Catan the dice chucking.
No, it's just like it's a tournament that has dice chucking. It shouldn't be valid at all. That's what it sounded like.
Might as well,
but
just be fucking Yahtzee.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there's Yahtzee.
There's Yahtzee tournaments. Yeah. There's fucking Farkle tournaments.
Yeah.
Flux.
Who can make the game last the longest?
Oh my God. This is my nightmare.
Yeah.
But so you don't think of this game, nothing about the marketing for this game or like the boxes or any of that make it seem like a game where there's deck building.
Yeah.
Or where that's part of it. And I could see that being something that if you don't really care, you just end up doing, which there's been times like I've known about the deck building thing, but in the past there's been times I've been like, especially when I got like my first expansion, it's like, well, it's 40 instead of 30. Screw it. Let's just do it. So that is part of it though. Like you can ignore it if you're playing casually, but you're going to dilute your decks and they might not synergize as well.
Yeah.
Synergy.
So depends on what you're looking for to get out of this game.
Yeah.
But we'll come back around to some of that, I think.
Yes, we will.
Gameplay. Overall, I think this game plays pretty smooth. Once you have the basic rules down, like I said, it's 5 rounds, and you just go through the like 4 or 5 phases. For
build your
each
engine.
round.
Yep.
And build your engine and run it.
Each round is going to take progressively longer just because you have more things you can do.
Exactly. You're making more resources. You have more action cards. You're doing more things.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a balancing act between the common cards and the
faction cards.
Correct.
Some faction cards can be real nice.
Yeah. Well, and they're also worth twice as much, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Faction cards are worth 2 points. Common cards are worth 1.
But those common cards, you need to be able to build a lot of faction cards.
For the most part, there are definitely some where you can just build them for free. Well, depending on the
resource cost.
Yeah.
Depending on the race or the faction, because some of them can go more towards the free or just resources, and others are like you need to build it. Like I think the Roman ones, it's like it tends to be a lot of the buildings, whereas
Japanese as well.
Yeah, whereas like the Egyptian one, it was more like there's a lot more
straight
of the,
resource cost,
or just free because it's the desert, and
it's the desert.
Yeah,
I know a lot of the barbarians I've played the most, and theirs are just straight up resource costs for a lot of theirs.
Yeah,
and very little.
Yeah. It was the same with the the Aztec and the Atlanteans as well.
Yeah.
They had a lot that were just resources or for free. So
yeah, which like in the base game, it kind of makes sense with the factions.
Yeah.
Like the Romans and Egyptians were about like building cities, and like if you needed to build like a Roman building, you had to build it over the ruins of some other building. Whereas like the barbarians are like, we're just throwing up a wood hut, or like we're just training in this ring of trees.
Exactly.
Like one of the Aztec ones that I was playing with was like, this card is just a big giant hole. Like you don't need a foundation to build a giant hole. You just
I want to say that was the name of the card.
Yes, it was. Big giant hole. Yep.
Big giant hole.
Yeah.
So there is some thematic connection there.
Yes, no, definitely. It's like Egyptians, like one of my favorite cards, and there was slaves.
Yes,
slaves.
A lot of the cards have references to slavery.
Yeah,
because I mean, the Aztecs and Egyptians and Romans and barbarians, lots of these different people had slaves, and they don't like shy away from that or gloss over it. Like, and there are often things like, pay a wood to get 2 people.
Yep.
Pay a gold to get 3 people. Like you're straight up buying people and then turning people into other resources because
people
go do
are
work.
useful.
Yeah.
But
I was just gonna say, so I know with raising, like it's definitely it's nice that you don't have to worry about that at the very beginning, because everybody starts out without the ability to raise somebody else's common cards. Now there are a lot of ways to get more of those. There are common cards and faction cards that can get you those swords, and then you can be like, oh, now you have to start worrying about certain things. And now the game comes with a shield icon that you get every turn, and
in some cases 3 times per turn.
Right. And once it's your turn, you get to put it on a thing. So if you have a card that's really crucial to whatever you're doing, you can put that shield on there, and then it costs 1 extra sword. So that doesn't mean that it's immune, but someone has to spend 3 swords in order to do it.
Which is that's a hefty cost.
Yes, because that's 3 cards they could raise from their own hand. That's 2 that's a card from somebody else and a card from their own hand. So it's like they specifically are doing it really to mess with you. Now I remember like the Atlanteans, because what I found out in the expansions is that some of them, like the Atlanteans, don't get any raised cards to start off with, or any swords.
They're peaceful people.
Yeah, they're peaceful people, but they also got up to 4 shields, depending if you're playing with 4 players.
Correct.
Boo.
So they're very protective in that respect.
Right.
So I would say too protective.
Yeah, right. It did suck, because there were a lot of cards I was like, man, I really wish I could raise this card and get draw 2 cards, but I just don't have any way to get attack right now, so I just have to look at this card and wonder.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of the things gameplay-wise, like you're drawing from random decks. Like, so the player decks are only 30 cards, which isn't much. Mm-hmm. But there's no rules about the faction, like the common deck. So like that can be a thick deck that you might have issues like if you're playing the Atlanteans who don't get swords. You're like, man, I really want a sword thing. And then like the Romans and the barbarians who produce swords like crazy from their faction deck happen to get the common cards that produce swords. You're like, well, what the hell?
Yeah.
They're getting all the swords and I'm not getting any. This is unfair. So there is a little bit of
this
that.
is Imperial Settlers. We already reviewed Unfair.
That's correct.
It's really good.
But
it's
yeah,
another card-based engine building game.
where you can attack other people's
Yes.
things and affect them.
Yep.
But that is a part of it. You can't super plan way ahead because you don't know how the card draws are going to work out. That's where drafting helps. Because I think drafting always helps reduce kind of that luck of the draw.
Yeah, but you also get so few cards too.
It doesn't help too much.
No,
But by the same token, unlike some games where drafting can take forever because you're drafting out of 7 cards, you're drafting out of 3. So it's like,
and you're only keeping 2 of them.
Yeah.
But then also, there are like actions that let you draw cards, unless it specifically says. It's nice that it lets you draw either from common or faction.
Yeah.
Because like later in the game, you want to get more faction cards out because it gets you more points, and for the most part, they're safe from getting raised and stuff like that.
And they're usually generally more powerful.
Yes.
Whereas if
more specialized towards you at the very least.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're like a faction like the Romans or Egyptians that we're talking about that need to give up common cards to build faction cards, you might be like, shit, I need more common cards to serve as the foundation for my faction cards. So you choose to go for common cards. Or like the last game we played, I was playing as the Aztecs, and there were times where I would intentionally take common cards just because I wanted to raise them for the goods. I was like, I don't care what these common cards are unless they're really good. I want to be able to raise them for goods out of my hand. So that was a big reason for me to take common cards.
So one of the I don't know which expansion it was that added it, but it added open production. Do you remember what it was called, Adrian?
It's one of the small box expansions.
Something threes.
Three's the magic number, or why can't we be friends?
Why can't we be friends?
Okay, yeah.
Because it's kind of we can all work together and like
that one.
Feed off each
that
other.
That one added a little bit of confusion too, just because it had the open production. But it's like, is that something that you still get on your turn? But it's so that one is. You got an enemy, not basically specifically not you. Can
an opponent.
An opponent can put a meeple on there to do whatever it says, and then the person who had that card gets a meeple in return.
Correct.
And so there was one where it was like, if you put a meeple on there, you get 2 meeple. And so, and then you'd get 2 meeple, and then Adrian would get a meeple. And so it was like, oh well, I'll just do this so we both get more, more things like that. But yeah,
which kind of goes along with that whole like the name of the deck is the why can't we be friends? So it's kind of like a more cooperative, like we're not necessarily attacking each other, like we can work together to
halfway through for me though, I was just like, especially because you were 10-15 points ahead of us, I was like, fuck you, I'm not giving you any people. I'll just deal with what I have.
I'll take all the people I want because I keep it between rounds.
Yeah, exactly. That's one other thing too.
I'll take 8 extra people.
Is that each race or each faction
has their own like pool that they keep from round to round.
Yeah, and so like the Egyptians get to keep money, the barbarians get to keep people, Romans get to keep swords.
Yep.
And then what was that fourth
Japanese
one?
get to keep food.
Yes, they get to keep food, and so
in the base sets.
Yeah,
and then the Aztecs get to keep.
I don't remember
something.
Aztecs kept stone, and I don't remember what
the Atlanteans kept gears.
Yeah.
So
Mechanisms.
yeah, mechanisms. Yeah, sure.
Whatever those things
Yeah,
are called.
but then it was nice. Like it's like my favorite race to play out of all these were the Egyptians, and so it's like once I started
Not
getting
broken at all.
not broken at all. Once you get a good coin engine going, you're like, yeah, I get to keep. I get 4 coin a turn. If I don't use it, sweet. I just get to keep it for next round because coin is everything but people. So or
It's
swords.
very powerful.
Yeah.
And in fact,
and that's kind of this whole game is every race can be broken depending on the engine you build before everyone else.
Yes.
So
You can get a bit of a runaway on there.
Yeah.
I've heard that basically both expansions are overpowered. I've heard forever that the Egyptians are overpowered. I've heard that the Japanese are underpowered, and yet I've won with the Japanese and I've lost with the Aztecs. I've only played once because I just got the expansion.
But you won that one by a heavy margin.
Very large margin.
We ended that at round 3 because we were like,
kicking us out of the bar.
Yeah.
Also that, but also it was like
how many? Oh, after 3 rounds, how many more points did he have than us?
he had twice as many as us.
Okay.
Yes. And I was at the point where I was getting 12 points production per round.
Yeah.
So it was rapidly spiraling out of control.
Spiraling.
And so I've only played them once, so I don't want to say that they are for sure unbalanced. I think this is a game though where this is one of those things where like I feel hypocritical. We talked just in the episode earlier this week. I mentioned like Mansions of Madness. There's nothing I should like about that game. I should hate that game, but I enjoy it. This game, I've complained about stuff like what's the shitty one with all the weird aliens and you have the flying saucers that take
Cosmic Encounter.
Yeah. I complained about that or something else we were reviewing where it's like, oh, the balance is because it's unbalanced and you have balanced it yourself. And I'm like, no, that's horseshit. I kind of feel like that's the Chaos in the Old World was the other one.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like Imperial Settlers is kind of that way. Like you kind of have to keep an eye out like, oh.
I could see that.
That's why there's interaction.
Yeah. And there's other games like, Indonesia's that way. Like, if somebody's
Merge.
running away with...
He's just got to throw Indonesia in there.
Yeah, he
got to.
has to.
Yeah.
We're only allowed to throw in terraforming Mars anywhere we want. That's the only thing.
Well, now for me, Indonesia is that
no,
one.
we're going to stop
veto.
That. Yep. I'll just happen to edit whichever one you're talking about. Cut that little... I have recorded you saying, I'm a tool, and I'll just put that in instead.
Vocaloids.
Anyway, staying on topic. Some of those games like Indonesia, Food Chain, those like you've got to be aware if somebody's running away with the game, you need to do something to change what is working.
You have to give them attention.
Yes. And this is kind of that way. And so it's funny that some games like Chaos in the Old Worlds and Cosmic Encounter I hate for that, but other games I love for it. I guess exceptions that prove the rule, or I'm a big hypocrite. One of those two.
Definitely the second one.
I know which one you guys choose. But yeah, aside from the two base ones, the Romans and the Barbarians, I feel like everything else can get a little unbalanced.
Get wild.
Get wild. But they can also lead to some like fun things. Like, if you're playing 3 things that are all very powerful, like if you're playing a 3-player game with Aztecs, Atlanteans, and Egyptians, like that's going to get interesting. Yeah. Like, who's going to run away with that? Whose things are going to be more powerful?
Who's going to be the most interactive and be like, burn that, fuck you, you're cool, and I win.
Yeah, and this still has like a lot of card-based engine building games, for me at least, seem to have this problem still of if one person has, they have a lot more actions than anybody else. Like you'll have it, especially near rounds 4 and 5. At the end, it's just like, Adrian and Jeff both passed after their 4th or fixed action, and I'm like, well, I still have 10 more that I can do.
Yeah.
And so you get to see somebody else just go, ooh, I get to do this and this, and now I'm going to do this and this and this. And like the Egyptians have some, it's like you can put a guy here and take a guy off another place. So you can use those again. And you're like, okay, well, I'll do those. I'll put another guy here, take those off, do those again, bam, bam, bam. And this is a very combo heavy game.
Yes.
If you're playing it right.
Wombo combo.
Yeah, exactly. And so it can be a little bit frustrating when you didn't play it right or you didn't get the cards to play it right. And somebody else
engine was not as efficient.
Exactly.
Because at some point this can become a deck builder, and if you didn't get those right cards,
Yup. So this is not, I think, a game that you want to introduce a new gamer to.
it's very interactive.
It's very interactive, and like, so I tried teaching this, and I'm gonna keep nameless to protect the innocent. I tried.
All right,
teaching this,
Dragnet.
I tried teaching this to some people who weren't very regular gamers and
Newer gamers.
very new,
Newer enthusiast gamers.
Yes. And it got to, like, I did the rules explanation, and I thought I explained everything pretty well. Like, I've played it several times. I feel like I can explain it well. And we did the opening, like, card draws and, like, the lookout phase of getting cards. And so they had their, like, 7 cards. And I was like, all right, so now, you know, like, it's my turn. I do this action. Now it's your turn. You know, so do an action. And they went, how do I know what to do? Like, what do I go for? Like, what?
Right.
And, like, it's like,
Pets.
well, it's hard to say, like,
I mean, yeah,
it's like hard to give strategy advice, like, because it's like, unless I'm seeing exactly what you're dealing with, I don't know, like, I don't know, look at, like,
Production and then actions that get you resources.
Well, because it's like so cards is going to get you points. Like ideally, you want points.
Yeah.
So it's like you put more of those cards out. You're going to get more points, but then eventually you're going to see some cards that it's like you want to get production so you can put more cards out. And there are some cards that if you use that extra production, you can just get points and stuff like that. But no, I would definitely agree that this is not a gateway game, but it's like a second tier one.
Yes.
So
it's not a heavy game by any stretch.
Post Ticket to Ride.
Yeah, it's a medium one, isn't that right, Jeff?
I would say this is
God
very
damn
medium.
you guys.
This is a very medium size game.
I'm just going to take a guess out of my heart, and I'm going to say 2.77 somewhere around.
I want to say 2.76.
6? So close.
No.
But, you know.
Hate both of you so much.
But no, once someone is introduced to these style of concepts, then they could go to the next level with this game.
Correct.
And this game can be used to push people off to, I want to say better games, but
Terraforming Mars-esque.
Deeper games.
yes, and better. But yes, deeper games also. Yeah.
Deeper games.
Yes.
So that's gameplay.
Yes.
Yes.
When do I complain about the expansions?
Very soon.
Okay.
Very soon.
So final thoughts
On the base
game.
I'm going to start.
Okay.
This base game is fantastic.
Okay.
I like everything about the base game. It is a solid game right out of the box. All the factions are super different. You have tons of different strategies you can do with every faction. Their faction buildings really make the difference in this game.
Yeah.
That common pool is super critical to how this game is designed. I love everything about the common ones, and you, like I said way earlier, like you have to balance your faction deck versus your common, because you get so much more production that kind of fills those little gaps from the common deck than you get with your faction deck, which can be super specific and be like, it's like, I don't have food. How am I supposed to make deals without food?
Yep.
Because like barbarians just don't have food production. You have to get that out of the common deck.
Yeah.
And making deals. Nice thing, they get a lot of people and can go 2 to 1 for any resource they want.
Barbarians have lots of people. At the end of the day.
Weird. As a base game, Imperial Settlers is one of my, I don't know, top 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So I have to remember that this is as the base game. As
Base
the
game.
base game, it is a good game. I agree with a lot of stuff that Jeff said. You do have to balance that faction versus common pool that you're dealing with. Each of the races do place differently, and they have their own sort of play style that's interesting to play as. Because you need to remember, it's like, like you said, I'm barbarians. I need to focus on getting people. Get other stuff cool, but if I just get people, that's fine because I can do other things.
People and fighting.
Yeah. Egyptians, like I said, is just all about, it's like, I just get all this gold and then I can just do everything.
And be totally broken.
Yeah. And it didn't feel like it took that long with the base game. And I did enjoy it. It's definitely not my top 20, but it is enjoyable.
Okay. So for the base game, I really like this game. I think that out of the box, it is a very solid 2 to 4 player game. Like, I think it plays well for all 4, from 2 to using all 4 of the factions. Like, it plays well. I like this game a lot as a 2-player game. I think is where it really shines, because like you were talking about a little bit earlier in the gameplay, Zach, like you can get to a point, especially in like longer games, where like if somebody's a little bit ahead, where they have a lot more actions, everybody else has passed, and they're like, oh well, I'm just gonna do 10 actions here real quick while y'all sit around and do nothing. And that sucks.
Hopefully singing is
Yeah, they will say exactly that in that exact tone.
That doesn't tend to happen as much in like a 2-player game.
Now, I know I haven't played it as 2-player. I mainly played it as a 4-player and then 1 3-player.
Okay. But overall, I think that out of the base box, it plays well at all player counts. I think that even the Egyptians, which can be a little bit like overpowered, in a 4-player game, they're balanced out by having to deal with everybody else there.
Yeah.
And kind of what comes from that. Like in a 2-player game, like, if you're playing 2-player Egyptians versus barbarians, that's not a super great
Bit of a struggle.
That's gonna hurt for the barbarians. Unless you've moved on to expansions and are deck building, that's all different. But out of the base deck, you want to play, if you're playing a 2-player game, you want to play with like similar factions. Like you'd want to play Egyptians versus Japanese, Romans versus barbarians, kind of a thing. But overall, I really like it out of the box for the base set. I think that it plays well. It doesn't take too long. I think that
under an hour.
30 to 60 minutes.
With 2 or 3 players.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when everybody knows what they're doing. It flows. So I like it. Now, let's take a brief moment to talk about the expansions.
Indeed.
Because I know Jeff has just been dying to talk about the expansions.
Yes.
So Jeff, do you want to start talking about the expansions?
Fuck deck building in this game.
Yeah, that's pretty garbage.
Where you're expected to only have like 30 cards of like 60 available cards that they add with the expansions. Not that the expansions don't add interesting cards and options, but playing this game enough to be on the level of deck building with Netrunner or like Arkham LCG or something like that, to where you have to deck build this game. Like, go online and fingers crossed you find a deck that you can build with some of the 4 original races, because the expansions will only have those 30 cards you need. But like,
no, the expansions will have 60 decks.
Was it 60?
Yeah, we both had 60 cards in both of our decks.
Playing with the original races and having to cut all that down, there is some significant power creep. In the barbarians, their original was like a forest, 2 wood production, and then in the expansion it just added like 2 wood and a gear. Like, why would I not use that other better card? Clearly. You would have to be like an advanced Imperial Settlers player to be able to make a deck out of this game with all of those cards. It's too much work to deck build with this game.
And then, like you said, especially the power creep, I know the Atlanteans, they added gears, which basically, like, if you have a production and you put one on there, now it's double production. If you have feature, it doubles the feature. If it has an action, you get to do an action again. And
one extra time.
Well, I know an extra time, but most of the other ones it's like you get to do this once, and now you get to do it twice. And I know the little bit that we played, it felt like that was like you just guys, everybody started getting gears on everything. And it's only for common cards, so you can destroy that card and then it's better, or it's fine because it's gone. But still, it just felt like we were getting way too much stuff.
You build the game up super fast.
Yeah, we had
just like double.
After like 2 turns, it was like, okay, I'm getting 6 people, I'm getting 6 stone, I'm getting 3 gears, and it just like, for me at least, it just felt like you were getting too much stuff, and so it made the game longer because everybody had so much more stuff to do.
It's like I'm doing round 5 stuff in round 2.
Yes. I would agree with that.
I could definitely see all of that. I will say that having just said that I think that this game works really well as a 2-player game out of the box, I think that the expansions make it even better as a 2-player game. Like, I was talking to Megan about this, like, because she picked it out, and
this is, I think, overwhelmingly voted as a 2-player game on Board Game Geek as well.
Yeah.
And so, like, we were talking, and I was talking about the expansions and everything in the deck building aspect, and, like, we were both like, you know what? Like, I think it would actually be fun for us to sit down, like, on a quiet evening across the table from one another, build 2 decks, and play each other. And then tweak the decks and play again, like, a different night. I think that if you're in a situation like that where you have another player who's interested in the game and you guys are willing to spend a little bit of time on top of the gameplay building a deck to then play against each other, that can work. Otherwise, if it's a situation like in our group where I have the copy, I have all the expansions, if I want to play again with all 3 people, I need to spend the time investment on my own to build 3 balanced decks. So that when I go out, I'm like, hey guys, do you want to play Imperial Settlers? Here's a good balanced barbarian deck, Jeff. Here's a good balanced Roman deck, Zach. I'll take a good balanced Japanese deck.
And then it sort of sucks in that respect because then it's like,
what's in all of the
decks.
Yes.
Whereas we would just be like even
Surprise.
Yeah, exactly. It would suck to have a new player try and do that because they're like, I don't have no idea what's coming on here,
Like,
and you're
how does this card interact with, like, I'm raiding and I have to only raid a red, a gray, or a brown because then I can get resources based on gears that I spend, but I don't have my gear production, and
And so I know the Aztecs added another prayer. What was it called? Blessings, prayer.
Blessings and prayer, which we never saw.
I used it once and I didn't get anything from it, but that one, it's like you pray 5 and then you say for a couple.
You choose a color.
You choose a color
black.
and then you just draw 5 cards and any of the ones
off the common deck.
off the common deck, and so it adds a luck aspect of that, a more of a luck aspect because you're like, I'm gonna say black. I hope there's some black there,
And there's no black.
and there's no black, and you're like, okay, well that was nothing. I don't know. It's just, for me, I don't think I would play this game with the Atlanteans or the Aztecs, or at least not. I don't. It just felt like it added too much for what. Like once we got to that style, Link reference number 3, I'd rather just play Terraforming Mars because it's another card building one. But I'd rather focus on that than the added. At least it felt for me the added time from the expansions.
Okay.
I felt I needed a binder of cards to, like, I need like 3 sets of 3 and 6 sets of 2, and then the rest is singles. And the game you get out of building that deck is still good, but the time and effort you need to, like, get there is maybe a little too much with the expansions.
Yeah. So I'm going to preface this with saying that I love Imperial Settlers, period.
I have said that it is in my top 20.
Yep. And I think that it would easily be in my top 20. I love this game. I think it is a ton of fun. I enjoy playing it. I look forward now to really exploring deck building going forward now that I have both major expansions and the 2 like small deck expansions. That said, I think this game tried to bridge a gap. Like it tried to combine being a game in a box, which most games are, with being like a Netrunner, L5R, whatever, LCG.
Living card game.
And it's not that. There's too much game in the base box to where, like, you're not going to find a situation where 3 people are each going to want to buy a base box and then build their different decks. Like, it makes more sense to have a base box and then 4 people play from that base box. And then once you start adding in those other things, like you said, like, you're not going to sit down to play and be like, all right, well, let's spend 2 hours building our decks before we play and then play a 45-minute game.
Yeah, no,
that does not make sense.
It's like we're all gonna make sure everyone brings their pre-built decks, and then we're going to meet up. And, everyone has their own copy of the game, so they can do that.
And that's not what this game ultimately, like, it tries to bridge that, and I don't think it works.
If you had a very attentive host that could do all of that for you, but
then like I said, like, I look forward to maybe building some custom decks, but then you run into the problem where, like, oh, we're playing, I know it's in all of the decks because I built all of the decks.
Yeah.
And so, yes, your attentive host then knows.
To be fair, there's not a whole bunch of, like, interaction point of, like, haha, I know that I'm going to cull so and so out of your deck. No, that doesn't happen in the game.
Yeah,
but
it's not like you're sort of saying with it's not like if you decide to play Netrunner, it's like, okay, well, use my corp deck, and it's like I know there's no traps in there, so I can go there fine.
Yeah,
it's not anything like that, but it still is a little bit of I don't know if, like, you draw.
I know
a
what
card.
Your production could be.
Yeah. It's like you draw a card, you don't know. Like, if you read off the top, it's like, oh, this doesn't seem that great, but it's like you included it because there's 2 cards that it works great with, and you're
Synergy.
like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's where the common cards can come in, where you're playing a lot out of whatever you draft.
I just know for me, I did like the base game, but the expansions brought the game into a direction I didn't care about.
Yeah.
So
you bulked it out into the game we played with all the expansions, the Aztecs and such. Like, we were turn 3 and we were like, this is over.
Yeah, I mean, we called it at the end of turn 3, and I had lapped the score track.
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous. From the, like, when you compare what scores are at the end of, like, just the base game, like, you're lucky to break 50, which is once through the track.
And then, like I said, I was the Atlanteans on that one. I didn't have any. I couldn't do anything about it because I didn't have any raising ability at all. Yeah. It was just like, if people raise your stuff, you get extra things. And it's like, oh, that's cool. But then
But then
the-
just nobody raises your stuff because it's too defended.
Exactly, and then the Aztecs were getting too powerful, and was like, I can't do anything about this. So
Can be super defensive against the Aztecs.
hooray!
Yeah.
It's just the power creep was too bad, and it just, like I said, it just brought it into a direction where it's like I didn't like, after playing with the gears, it's like I don't want to play with the gears.
And I'm torn because I like some of the concepts like that they like. I like the idea of the gears. They're just too common. Like, even me playing the Aztecs, I had Aztec cards that were letting me end up with like 4 gears a turn, which then I just dump on all my common cards, so every common card is making double.
Yeah.
And it just kind of ran away with it. I think that if the gears were, and this is where smart deck building would come into play, if gears were a little bit more rare for each faction, so where like you had to really choose wisely where you wanted to allocate them. So like, yes, you can get some things double bonused, but you know, not everything.
Yeah.
And it would kind of balance out more and work better. So final thoughts, final verdict.
I'm fine with playing with the small expansions, but I don't want to play with the Aztecs or the. If I play this again, I would play the game again, but I wouldn't want to play with the Aztecs or the Atlanteans or using the prayers or the gears.
Or without decks that were already pre-built.
Yeah. Ooh,
Unless you just went straight base decks.
yeah. Well, I mean, because I know like one time we played where you had the Atlanteans in there, and it was just avoid anything. If anything has a gear on it, don't use it. We just get something else. You just draw another card. Like, for me, that would be fine, because then it's like you would weed out almost everything from the expansions enough to where it'd be okay. So that would be my preferred way of playing it. You just nothing with the prayers or the gears.
Well, we saw one prayer card. We don't know how prayers actually realistically work.
It was thinned out a bit.
Yeah.
It was very thinned out.
Yeah.
Jeff, what do you think?
I love the base game. I think the expansion adds a lot of cool and interesting cards that you can deck build out of, but I think it's too much work to enjoyment level, where the base game is already fantastic. That the expansion, I think, ruins the game a bit. The expansions are cool. The expansion cards are cool. If you can deck build and, I don't know, net deck some barbarians, it could be fun, but I had plenty of fun with the barbarians as they were before, that I don't need a mechanical carriage.
It just adds a mechanism of deck building that I think the game didn't need.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's like, let's make a board game, and now it's an LCG.
Well, I mean, the deck building was in the base game. Like, it's in the base rules.
Yes.
Like, that you can combine like decks, and like you can combine.
You can combine
Egyptians.
factions.
You can
Yeah.
combine factions
That-
to make a 30-card deck.
yeah, that also does. I have no interest.
I have no interest in doing
No,
that, because
definitely
everything else outside of that is perfectly awesome.
Yeah.
So my thoughts largely mirror Jeff's on this. I love the base game. I think it's fantastic. I'm very intrigued by the base idea behind the two expansion factions, both the Aztecs and the Atlanteans. But I think that the new mechanics that come with them cause, like, we've said the word, like, power creep. Like, you just end up, like, too much starts to happen. Turns take way too long. Everybody's making double resources, so they just take turn after turn after turn. They use all their cards, and you do everything. And that detracts from the core of the game and keeps it from moving quickly and efficiently. Kind of bogs down, and that's disappointing, because like I said, I think the Aztecs and the Atlanteans both sound at their core interesting, and so I look forward to kind of playing around with some of the deck building to see if there's a way to balance that out to where you don't end up with runaway gear usage. If there's a way you can build different balanced decks that all do really interesting but powerful things.
Yeah.
So you have 4 powerful factions that are balanced versus like 4 watered down factions that are balanced. But yeah, I wholly recommend the base game. 100%. Can't recommend it more. I love it. The expansions, just beware what you're getting into.
Would you say the small ones are fine?
I think the small ones are fine. I think the small ones add some really interesting things. I
Like making pairs out of the colors of the buildings.
Yeah, so the 2 small box expansions are the Threes Company or something like that. And that involves like making sets of 3 and add some cards that like synergize in that direction. And then the other one, Let's Just Be Friends, adds especially the
Open production.
the open productions, because that adds some really interesting other kind of interaction. Where like, ooh, I'm going to be helping him.
Yeah.
Is it worth the reward I'm getting? And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And I think that those, and then like, I think both of them add some of the cards that are just immediate events, where like you draw it and you play it, and everybody suffers the event.
Yep.
And those add some interesting things. So
Sometimes it's suffer getting +1 stone.
yes.
Yep.
So wholly recommend the 2 small box expansions, Three's Company.
Those
or
are nice
whatever,
expansions.
and the Let's All Be Friends. But the 2 big box ones, like I said, I like the ideas behind those expansions and the factions in them. They might introduce too much mechanically for the game to really sustain.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Like it, Twilight Imperium.
Yeah.
And Ambassadors. Fuck them.
That's where we disagree, Jeff.
Yeah, I think we might disagree on that.
Yeah.
I've never played without them, so I don't know.
I've played a lot without them. We got to get a base game of Twilight Imperium.
It's true, we do. We do. So we can be like, oh, man, Jeff, you're so wrong. This was barely a game.
This Twilight Imperium is barely a game.
Yep, yeah.
Said no one ever. So yeah, good game.
Yep.
Expansions could be better.
The small ones are fine. The big ones just add too much that
Yeah.
you just don't need to.
Yeah.
At least for me, don't have to worry about them.
But yeah, so those are our kind of final thoughts and everything on Imperial Settlers. If you are interested in picking this up, the base game is available pretty widely for between $30-$35, all major retail outlets. So go nuts. And the expansions, they're also all pretty widely available at this time. They range they're the 2 big box faction expansions are around like $20-$25, and the small box are $10-$15, depending on where you are and where you find them. So
There are some cool promos you can get for this.
yeah, I have one. I've put it in my last 2 games, but I always forget to really point it out, and nobody ends up using it. But basically, if everybody puts a person on it, then everybody gets a draw card.
It's like the council or something.
I really would have liked to use that last time.
It was there.
It was
know, but
there,
I just-
and I forgot to point it out
Yeah.
and forgot to
I saw it
encourage
because I
people to
got
use
it for him for Christmas.
Yes, you did. That's true. Thank you, Jeff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you are interested in Imperial Settlers, you can pick it up for reasonable prices. So, Zach, I believe we had some responses to our BGG thread about Imperial Settlers.
We did.
Which, if you're interested in being involved in discussion of review games, head over to our guild number 2731 on BGG. Zach posts weekly pre-episode discussion threads for our review of the week. Next week, we will be reviewing Flatline and Fuse and comparing and contrasting them. So get over there and give us your thoughts and opinions and questions. But for Imperial Settlers, Zach.
Yeah. So Mike says, I enjoyed having you in my podcast feed twice this week.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you could do some cliffhangers in between the Wednesday and Friday podcasts. Previously on Mile High Game Guys.
We're
Hey,
definitely going to start doing that.
Hey, stop
Probably.
stabbing me.
I don't
Yes,
know.
exactly.
We'll see. We've got ideas.
Yeah. The only time I played Imperial Settlers was when I was up in Denver with you guys last year. I had been scared away of games with a bunch of text on the cards prior to playing this. I feel like I spend so much time reading the cards that I have no idea what other people are really doing. That being said, I really enjoyed the play of it and picked it up a few months ago. I haven't been able to get it back to the table. It seems like you need to find people who are at the same level of familiarity with the game, as after you know what cards and combos to look for, it seems like it would be difficult for a noob to compete. It's another game that I hope to break out when my kids get a bit older and we can play it a bunch.
Yes.
I can agree with that, yeah.
Pretty much everything you said, I think we kind of already covered it during the review. Definitely different skill levels are going to have different experiences.
Yeah.
There's definitely an edge to be knowing what to look for and how to play with it.
Yeah.
It is definitely the bane of a board gamer's existence to pick up a game and then have trouble getting it back to the table.
Yes, it is.
But yeah, it's a good
X
game.
versus Minions.
And
Yes.
hopefully,
Yep. We need to play that more, too.
I know.
Nah.
Well, we didn't invite you.
Yeah. It was. I pointed at Jeff. I'm like, we, the Murder Island folk need
Yes.
to play it more.
But yeah, I agree with you, Mike. It is a little tricky because definitely save experience counts.
It's a great game. It's not newbie friendly, but it's
Not super newbie.
I don't know, rookie.
Persevere.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one is from Chad. I've heard this compared to 51st State constantly.
Weird.
I know. Yeah, just a little bit. It'd be interesting to hear thoughts on who you'd recommend Imperial Settlers for and who you'd recommend 51st State for. I also think somebody, maybe even you guys, once compared this to Unfair at some level. I might be making this up. ignore it.
It's almost like we totally made that reference on the episode.
It's funny that we did. I don't remember during the Unfair episode if we referenced it at all to Imperial Settlers. I might have, because there is a similar like building your own engine and then slightly screwing with other people.
Yeah.
As to the
This
main,
one's a lot kinder about it.
yes, it's not nearly as super screwy.
Dicky.
Yep.
Especially because like this one, even when you get like if somebody raises one of your buildings, you get a resource, and now that building is still usable to build a faction.
Yep.
So you don't have to burn a useful card otherwise. So it kind of isn't the worst to get raised. To the meat of his question regarding 51st State.
This is a re-implementation of 51st State.
Yes, and then 51st State was then re-implemented.
With the master set, I think it's called. And
From Imperial Settlers.
I haven't played 51st State.
I have not either.
None of us have. We tried to look for a copy here locally, and the only one that I am aware of, I didn't learn about until this past weekend. And it's still in shrink up at Heavy Cardboard. And so, however, although I'm sorry we're not able to directly compare them and tell you which one's great for which person, you can listen to this episode that hopefully you've just finished listening to.
Re-listen to this episode.
Start back at the beginning.
But first,
hear all of-
delete the episode and then re-download the episode.
Correct, because we are all about those numbers.
Yep.
I'm sure that counts.
However, you can listen to our review of Imperial Settlers and get our feelings for Imperial Settlers. And then you can jump over to Boards Alive podcast, which are also members of Punchboard Media, kind of co-content creators with us.
Synergy.
And their episode,
I'm not going to say it.
their episode 77, which released back on the 18th, so like 10 days ago.
Oh, nice.
Was 51st State Master Set.
Okay.
So listen to our review of Imperial Settlers, listen to their review of 51st State, and
Then when we inevitably review 51st State, you can come back.
yes, and when they inevitably review Imperial Settlers,
Go
which
back and forth.
they may have done it.
It's like the Lucifer.
Yep.
But you can listen to those two episodes that just both recently came out and are fresh hotness. Yes, I said hotness. Again.
Oh, man.
Ian will be happy.
He will.
Very happy.
I said doo-doo apparently twice last week.
You did.
Very rapidly.
You've said
said
it
it
once
again.
this week. Yeah.
Well, just now.
Yeah. Still counts.
But you can listen to those two episodes and kind of compare and contrast them on your own. I'm sorry we can't give you a better answer.
I've been interested in that game. I have yet to have access to purchasing it.
Yeah.
So I know the main difference for that one is that like you don't have like there's only one
Factions.
side of the board. Yeah, it's only the common side. So
Yes. And I think it's a little bit more aggressive because it's like post-apocalyptic raiding each other.
Yeah.
that sounds more interesting.
Might be. So that was Chad from of Dyson Men, also Canadian.
Oh yeah, it was. Look at that.
Yeah.
So the next one is from Paul. Some feedback. Take it or leave it.
Leaving it.
Yep.
All of it.
All right. XOXO Paul. Done. One, tell us what next week's review will be on this week's podcast. I think we already did.
Yes. We said it on
Both of them.
Wednesday's show
Yep.
and on this one for Friday. It is, just to reiterate,
Yeah.
Fuse and Fuse Flatline.
Yeah. So it's weird how you're asking us this when we already said it in the previous episode, Paul.
Jeez, Paul.
It's really rude of you.
Very rude.
Yeah. Put up a damn calendar somewhere of your review schedule. He acts like we know everything that we're going to be reviewing before.
We have
Yeah, so-
broken it down.
So the
but
problem is that we have a rough idea of like our next
Yep.
7 or 8 episodes.
we could probably put up like a bulk of like, hey, these are them, but the order could
Well,
change.
What I was
And
going to
the
say
games
is
themselves can change.
to be like, this is what we planned, but these can all change at a moment's notice. So
When someone has to go to like 9 weddings over the next 2 weeks.
yes. Or when we surprise get a review copy.
Yes.
Of Yokohama and we
Yep.
try and squeeze it in.
Yep. Number 3, I really liked Imperial Settlers when we played it. We should play it again so I can destroy you. Parentheses, Adrian, close parentheses. Again.
Yes. I do believe Paul beat me the one time I played
Yep.
with Paul.
Seems like Adrian loses to Paul.
Everyone loses to Paul.
It's the
'cause
scissors
Paul
to
is
Paul's
an
rock.
asshole.
Yep. XO, comma, Paul. Hugs and kisses from Paul to you, Adrian.
Yes.
So he can brutalize you again
Yeah.
at Imperial Settlers.
That's okay. I beat him real good at Indonesia.
Just remind him of that.
Yep.
Just did.
You hear that, Paul?
Suck it. Yeah, so that concludes, I believe, all of our review stuff for Imperial Settlers.
Indeed.
You are correct.
This was our second standalone review of the new series.
Year 1
Yes.
of the Mile High Game, guys.
Year 1. So let us know what you've been thinking of this like split episode thing. I know
Yeah.
Mike said he liked having us in his feed twice this week. How about the rest of you? What do you think? Are you
Does
enjoying
Friday
it?
work for you? Is another day better?
Yeah. Would you rather us like hold off till Monday so you have like the review to start the week and then Wednesday you get the brand new fresh live show? Let us know kind of what works for you. We're flexible within reason.
All Monday. Everything.
Everything on Monday.
Everything needs to be recorded and edited and, released on Monday.
All right. Well, okay.
All right, we have an hour to edit everything and release it.
I'm
Zach.
fine with that.
Let's
You know what
get
I'm going to do?
cracking.
I'm not going to edit it.
You're going to get it raw. Whether your ear holes are ready for it or not.
Yep. Just do the cuts that you said, and then that's it.
I've got highlighter now.
Yes, you do.
I stole it from work.
Good job.
I left it in my pocket.
It's great how you
Doesn't
have
your boss
Yeah.
listen to this show?
It's
He's
also
not-
a friend.
my friend Josh, who also happens to be a supervisor at work for the asset protection.
Do you want him to cut that?
No. Okay. No, it's fine. Everyone knows who Josh is. If any of my coworkers listen to this, they know who Josh is, and they know Josh works.
And they know that you stole you stole something.
I stole one highlighter because I left it in my pocket. No one's going to care about this highlighter. It's going to go back tomorrow.
Okay, well, you didn't
Yeah.
say that.
Yeah, you just said you stole it. I thought you just went over to the shelf.
I'm going to get pulled into Josh's office,
Yep.
and he's going to be like, "Where's that fucking highlighter?"
And then you try and give him the wrong one, and you're like, I fucking know it's blue.
I don't think it ever mentioned it was blue.
Now he knows it's blue. You blew it.
That's a great note to end on.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. If you haven't already, be sure to enter our giveaway contest for Gloomhaven. It is running until July 10th.
That's what we didn't talk about last week. Or on the previous one. I don't
Yeah, we
think.
did.
Did we mention that it ended on the...
Not the date.
Oh, okay.
No.
So on Wednesday, we didn't mention the date it ends. You have until July 10th at noon Mountain Time. So to enter this contest, you have 3 ways. Send us an email.
Emails at milehighgameguys.com.
Wait, what was that? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
It was emails
Okay.
at milehighgameguys.com.
It was an
it's,
S?
it's,
Okay.
it's short for electronic mails.
Oh, my God. What?
Jesus. This is what happens when I let Zach have a bottle of rum on
You
the
didn't
show.
let me. I brought it. It's my own bottle.
Anyway, so you send an email to the aforementioned email address.
Thought this was America.
Titled,
Whatever, Dad.
titled Gloomhaven giveaway. And tell us something interesting. That's the email entry.
Interesting. Fun
Yep.
facts.
Yep.
Fun facts,
Jokes. Whatever.
stories, whatever.
If it's not interesting, we're going to delete it and tell you to send us something actually interesting.
Correct. We might read it on the show and then be like, "That's not interesting. Try again," because we're rude like that.
Just listen to know if your entry was denied or not.
Second way you can enter, jump over to our Board Game Geek Guild number 2731.
Yep.
Zach has a thread, Gloomhaven giveaway or something like that. That is the actual name of the thread.
Yep.
And in there, tell us how you first found out about the show. Whether it was you heard you saw a Twitter post about the giveaway and you're like, oh, fuck it, I'll enter a giveaway.
Yeah.
Or whether you've been a long-time listener, whatever, enter there.
Let us know.
Yes. Thirdly, you can enter on Twitter at MHGameGuys. Tweet us, including the hashtag MHGloom, and tell us who your favorite one of us on the show is.
And why.
And why. So even if you're like, oh, I can't possibly decide because
Why can't you decide?
because
Yeah.
I can't make a decision.
Is it we
in
all
life.
suck?
You're all my favorite. Meh.
Yeah.
Whatever the case is, or Zach's my favorite because he's got a shitty attitude.
I think it's a great attitude because it's fuck Adrian
Yes.
attitude.
Yes. Yeah. Remember that it's really 2 camps. It's the Adrian and the fuck Adrian. Fuck Adrian goes to Zach or Jeff.
Yeah.
Then
I would say Zach is the leader of
Yeah.
the fuck Adrian camp, and I'm just really a follower.
Yeah.
So apparently the teams have changed. It is no longer which one of the 3 of us.
No,
It's
it is.
whether you are Team Adrian or Team not Adrian.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just the general podcast vibe.
Yeah.
But I mean, people could enjoy Jeff's like fuck Adrian attitude as a follower of Zach's real prime.
Yeah. Jeff's more laid backness, where Zach is just very aggressive at it.
Yeah.
And then if you feel sorry for Adrian, you could, I don't know, go fuck off or something. I don't know.
Unless like you enjoy heavy games.
Yeah, you can.
He's just sitting there squinty-eyed and silent.
Very, very fierce glare.
Fierce.
And I don't feel anything from it.
Because
No.
you're dead inside.
That's beside the point.
I think we're all pretty well dead inside at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
A year of podcasting will do that to you.
Yep.
Yes, a year of sitting in a room with these two getting ripped on will kill any joy you had in your life.
Is that why you started liking heavy games?
I hate you all so much.
It all makes sense now.
Oh, it's all come clear.
Oh, God. That was... I hate to admit it. That was good. That was real good. I think we're done here.
Yep.
I've been Adrian.
I'm still Zach.
And what is best in life, Jeff?
We'll catch you all later. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye. Mouse faces have just been on a bed, and he's like, "What the fuck?"
You ripped the skin off of the mouse and put it in the bed?
Something like that. Yeah.
Like if you imagine Godfather, but with cats and mice instead of people and horses.
But it's not even like horse head; it's like horse face.
Punchboard Media,
where we all
bring something
to the table.
Pull up a chair
at punchboardmedia.com.